Hey everyone, this is Rosalina.
And this is Shauna, and we're your hosts for Too Young for This Shit podcast.
This podcast is not just about boobs, but our journey with cancer. We are young millennials, open about giving you our raw and unfiltered look into our lives. We are in no way medical professionals, nor are we offering medical advice. Any medical references are cited directly from public websites or from our personal diagnosis. Some topics and stories may be triggering to those who are fighting, have fought, or have loved someone with cancer.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Young for This Shit podcast. Today you're going to hear my story. This is Shauna. My story on how I found out I had breast cancer and kind of my steps through finding out about my diagnosis. And this is going to be a two-part episode. So I'm going to go first and Rosalina will be the next episode. So I found out I found a lump in the shower in March of 2020. This was the week New York shut down. And I was in the shower and it was a large lump in my right breast. And I totally panicked and immediately made an appointment for my gynecologist, got to see her I think it was the same day.
When you found that lump, did you automatically know that it was cancerous?
The crazy part is that it literally came up overnight, and it was large. I didn't know what it was. I went to work the next day and I had a friend, a nanny friend of mine, kind of feel it, because I was like, do you feel this too? I wasn't sure what it was. I don't think I immediately was like, it's cancer, but it was definitely I was immediate, I need to go get a breast exam, immediately. So I was due to go see the gyno around that time anyway. Yeah. So it did work out. So I ended up going to the gynecologist and she felt it and she really dismissed it. She told me that it would have felt more like a pea size, that this was too large, that this feels like fatty tissue. She wasn't concerned. And she wrote me a script for a sonogram just to go check it out. But it was more for the peace of mind, not to rule out cancer. So that was Wednesday. And then Friday was my last day at work because that was the beginning of the pandemic. And New York shut down and my boss is quarantined and I was staying at home. And for those that weren't in New York, the peak of COVID, it was a very, very scary time. You weren't leaving your houses. You would go to the grocery store and you'd go home. And that was about as much as you wanted to be out anyways. And so for me, I was, really panicked and nobody, last thing I thought was a good idea was going to a doctor's office, really, in the beginning of the spread of the virus. And I kind of was she didn't seem concerned and, I'll wait till this is done.
Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
assumed it was going to be 2 weeks. And, I, just assumed, I just said I'll revisit this once the pandemic's over.
So essentially she had you wait because she thought that the pandemic was just going to last for 2 weeks.
She just wrote me a referral, and I had to make the appointment on my own. Gotcha. So I had left and then I think I had an appointment for the following week, but I canceled it because of the pandemic and everybody.
Yeah, what was going
on. Exactly. And they didn't cancel the appointment. I canceled it. So it was definitely my bad. But, my, I said, my initial reaction was, I'm going to revisit this once, 2 weeks when everything opens back up again, we'll revisit this. And, it lasted months. And, I just kind of was like, she's not concerned. I'm not concerned, so I was fine. I had a very normal summer and, I was still out of work, because of the pandemic. And then come September, I ended up getting a new job and just kind of was feeling great. Like I felt there was no side effects other than my lump that like even made me feel like something else was going on. I felt like probably the best I've felt in a really long time. I was super energetic, like in a really good place, health wise, and, just in my life that I just didn't think anything was wrong. And started a new job in September, was like super busy with that. And it was probably it was right before Christmas where I just got out of the shower and I was getting dressed and I caught a glimpse of my breast in the mirror. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? My whole right breast was like it changed. Yeah. Like it was, my nipple was like almost a little like inverted. I had dimpling, my like skin discoloration, and it was bigger.
Any rippling?
Yeah, rippling. Yep, rippling skin color. My nipple shape was different, and my, when I was feeling it, my breath, like the lump was bigger than it was in March
when you felt it.
Yeah, and I immediately called my gynecologist, and I was like, I need a sonogram and a mammogram. Like, there's something going on, and at that point, I kind of was like, had gotten on Google, and another one of my other symptoms was I was having like a discharge, like in my, not a discharge, but like stains in my bra from some sort of something. Okay. So I was like, what are the spots? And like, I started to really notice it, like once I saw it, it was happening daily. And so I called, I said, I need a mammogram. And it was, of course, the week before Christmas. So my gynecologist was like, I'm out of the office until, what was it, January 2nd or whatever it was. And I was like, all right, well, I can get this done and then freak out then and not be able to talk to her for a couple of weeks, or just wait till the week she's back and go. So I ended up making an appointment for the sonogram and mammogram. And I got there and I did the mammogram first.
Was that in December?
I waited for my doctor. So, January 2021, like first week. I think it was January 5th I went. And my doctor is affiliated with the radiologist's office, so she would be able to get my results immediately. That was their first appointment the week my gynecologist was back, so I went. And so I first had the mammogram part, which like nobody prepared me for how painful a mammogram was.
Yeah, no one does. Like, because the mammogram, you get that when you're 40. So who would tell you these things when you're younger?
I know, right? Exactly. And I mean, like, I heard people say it's uncomfortable and like, whatever, but like it was, I mean, granted, my tumor was the size of a golf ball at that point. And they did like 2 slides on my non-cancer breast, which was like just 2 squeezes and it was fine. But they did it like 8 or 9 times on my cancer side. And it was like by the last one, I was like, I'm done. I was like, yelled at the technician. I was like, I'm done. No more. And she's like, okay. She's like, you did great. And I'm like, I mean, it was painful, and I was in pain for days after.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was just they squeezed too much. It was too much. But from there, I was like brought into a room for the sonogram part, and I had a tech she was very quiet the entire time, very quiet. And then she left the room and brought back a doctor.
During the time when you had the sonogram and she was putting the gel on you and like looking through to see if there's anything, were you able to see the screen of what she was looking at?
Yes, I was watching the screen the whole time. She was doing a ton of measuring. I knew there was something that they had to measure, but she did a ton of measurements. She was just quiet the whole time, and I just kind of watched. And I had my mask on, and then she left the room and brought a doctor in, and the doctor got on, and she starts measuring, and she looked at me, and she was like, "All right, well, she's like, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm going to use the C word. This really does look like it's cancer." And I started to cry immediately. I think I ultimately knew come December, I ultimately knew it was bad after I once I got on Google and I had every symptom and like what to look for. I had all the signs, so I kind of went in there like knowing that or just I think I knew ultimately what it was. And I even said to myself, like, once I saw it, and I said to even my boyfriend, like, if this is something bad, like, you know, I kind of like already know how I want to handle it.
Yeah, like your gut
Like
feeling.
I already knew I would do a
Okay.
double mastectomy. I already like kind of in the back of my mind, like I had made all the decisions had this diagnosis been what it was, which was breast cancer. So, but once she said it, I did get very, very upset and I cried.
It was confirmed that it was, right?
It wasn't fully confirmed. Well, she said based on what it looked like to
Mhm.
her, it was, but we would still need to do a biopsy. So I didn't get to do the biopsy that day. I
Schedule
had
another
to
appointment. Yeah.
go in the following, yeah, schedule another appointment for the following week. But I like walked out of that appointment in tears, hysterical. My boyfriend had picked me up outside, and I had lost it in the car and was like super upset for a few days. And then I think that was like a Thursday, but Monday, no, it was I think a Wednesday or a Thursday. By Monday,
Okay.
I had my biopsy, which was not as bad as what I imagined it was going to be.
Did they explain to you what the biopsy entails? Did they like give you a general sense of what that was?
So they said it would be a needle that goes in and they take out tissue, but I would be numb.
Mhm.
I have also a friend who has had a few biopsies done.
Oh,
An
cool.
older
Okay,
friend.
so
Yeah. So
you had some knowledge
yes.
basically from what they had.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she, I kind of was like, does it hurt? Is it bad? Like, what do I expect? And she was like, honestly, no, it's really not that bad. So I kind of went in there really calm. And
Mhm.
my radiologist was so sweet and very gentle and, really kind of made me feel comfortable throughout the
Yeah.
entire time. And
That's really nice.
yeah, it was really nice. And um, so that was a Monday. By Thursday, they had called me and I was at work and I didn't want to get upset at work. And I think I had already wrapped my head around the fact that this was what it was and I just needed the confirmation. So they had
Mhm.
called me and, they told me it was invasive ductal carcinoma. They had to wait to give me and it was estrogen progesterone positive and they had to wait to get my HER2 status.
Okay.
So that part was so annoying because it took almost 3 weeks from the day of my biopsy to get that,
Oh,
what is it, a
wow.
fish test, it's called, to confirm whether or not I had. I guess the test that they had done, it was like too close to like tell via the biopsy. They needed to run like a
Mhm.
separate test. So that took 3 weeks. So it was very hard to I ended up seeing a breast surgeon in that time. And their office was like on the pathologist to like try to get that HER2 status because we couldn't make any plans until we had gotten that. But in that time,
Did you schedule your breast surgeon at like a different clinic or was it on the same clinic?
no, I ended up just doing some research and then
Okay.
yeah, based off of like what my like where my insurance would be covered.
Would cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up going for two opinions, but I ended up finding them both just basically online. And
Mhm.
I called so the breast surgeon I ended up seeing, her office was amazing and that's the breast surgeon I ended up choosing, but their office really got on the pathologist in the office and got my results and I was HER2 negative. And then from there we were able to start planning out my plan of attack.
Yeah. So like let's take a pause here. So where was your mindset throughout this whole journey? Like especially since you had to wait 3 weeks for that result of the HER2, whether you're HER2 positive or negative. Like what was your mindset there?
So my mindset in that time, well, I mean, I was just so annoyed. Like I had really cried the day of the mammogram and sonogram. So like I kind of felt like I got that all that type of emotion out. When they had called me to tell me it was breast cancer, I was not as shocked. Like, it wasn't a shock to me. So I didn't cry, and I didn't, I was kind of like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
And from there they told me to find a breast surgeon, and I said, okay. So at that point, then I saw a breast surgeon, and my results still weren't in, but I was in that time, we had talked about steps before, like things that I could do before even getting that result. Like, we talked about doing like freezing my eggs. And yeah, so in that time I was
Wow, that was really early on.
Yeah, so they basically kind of gave me that information, and that they ended up finding me my fertility doctor, which was great too. So I had started meeting with them to try to get that going, but I was just like, I was so annoyed that these results were taking so long because I couldn't figure out the plan of attack as far as treatment and surgery was going to go. So, like, I just kept getting in this mode of being like, okay, what's next? What can I do next? Let's get the ball rolling on this. Let's get the ball rolling on that. Like, I think just always having like the what's next and then getting that step done always was like so good for me in a weird way. Like, it kind of kept me just
sane in a
yeah,
way.
in a weird way. Like, so yeah, it was, my mindset was basically like, what can I do next? Like, what's going to happen next? Like, okay, this is going to, let's do this, then do that. And so that was really where my mindset was. Finding also a doctor, and a hospital that I wanted to get my treatment and my surgery at. Like, I was basically finding second opinions and trying to see who and like where would I be a good fit, really.
How did you choose your clinic? Like, what were the criterias that you were looking for?
So, I ended up meeting with two breast surgeons from two separate hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So, I met with one from NYU who she was great. I mean, I really liked her, and she kind of was in this, like, I had a lot of questions about like cosmetic stuff,
Yeah.
and that particular breast surgeon was like kind of more of like, my job is to get in there, take it out. Like, we're trying to save your life. Like, the cosmetic stuff really kind of comes after, which for a young woman, I'm, 32, the cosmetic thing is a huge important part in this. I want to make sure that my reconstruction is the best it can be. I want to make sure that after this is over, that like I feel confident in my body and in my skin. Like, that was a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't have like the bedside manner. She wasn't like overly like soft. Like, she wasn't overly like comforting, and she didn't coddle me. She didn't, she was kind of like, she gave me the facts and gave me the information as like straight and to the point as possible, which was fine. I didn't need her to be that person for me, which, like, I thought maybe I would, but I really didn't need her to be that person for me. I had other support from like my family and my friends. So I was like, I was okay with it. Then I met with another woman who actually was a friend of my former employer. Their kids go to school together, and I met with her, and I loved her. I actually really loved her. But the hospital was like, we had gotten there, the hospital was like under construction. Like, the floor they were on was like basically a construction zone. We got off the elevator, and there was like the plastic like tarps that were like covering like portions of it, and I was like, I didn't even know if we were on the right floor when I got off. Like, it was kind of like that. Yeah. And then we also waited an hour and like 15 minutes in one of the rooms to like be seen, and I was kind of like, I just had an appointment at NYU and literally went from like the elevator right into an exam room and was seen. Like, it was just like, quick and easy. And then I'm like, now I'm at this hospital. I'm getting off in a construction zone, waiting an hour and 15 minutes in this office. But I loved the breast surgeon. She was young. Like, she really like stressed like we want to make these look as good as possible while also getting like clean margins. And, I felt like she was she was a little bit more on my level as far as like what I would want them to look like and how I'd want it to be done and whatever. Like she was really kind of like more with it for me.
Yeah, she had like more what to say, like she was giving you like more information about like the reconstruction, where the NYU breast surgeon wasn't really kind of giving you that. She was just basically saying like, my job is just to take out the cancer and that's it.
Exactly. So
yeah, okay,
I got a really good like feeling from the breast surgeon at it was at Mount Sinai, but Mount Sinai at that time it's just like the facility wasn't doing it for me, and the waiting wasn't doing it for me. I don't want to be in a, and this was January. It was cold and I'm in this like room for an hour and 15 minutes in, the gown, just like waiting for somebody to come in and touch my boobs. Like, it was really, I don't know, like that experience wasn't great. And
I think it's important to choose a clinic where you'll be able to get appointments fast, but also, when you're at your appointment, you're not waiting so long as well, because you're going to be at the hospital like so many times. So I think that you're not wrong in choosing like a clinic based off of like where you could be seen the quickest.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And NYU, for me, they made all my appointments. They found doctors that took my insurance through their network. And like, I mean, they just made the entire experience like easy and seamless. And there's like never a wait time. You go right in, everything is organized. Their like app to make appointments, change appointments, check in, test results, everything is just like amazing. And like I grew up in a small town on Long Island where, everyone I know went to the same pediatrician, and it was in this man's house. And, like it, everyone was private practice. And I've never experienced like a network, like a hospital network like this before. And I'm like, I felt like at 32 years old and I've always had health insurance. Like this isn't even like, I feel like I'm experiencing like the most amazing healthcare right now at 32 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And, I can't even, like, my experience there has been so amazing. And, I also, in this time of like, when I was waiting for my biopsy results to come back, I had spoken to another friend of my former employer who was a radiology oncologist. I talked to her on the phone for probably like 2 hours. She answered like every single one of the questions I had. And she was great. Like, before even getting my results, I had asked like, what's the best case scenario, like cancer? Like I was legitimately like, that is the most insane thing I've ever had to ask. Like, like if I'm good, but it's true. If I'm going to have this,
that's
like
a good question to ask. Yep.
The best case. And she said, ERPR positive, HER2 negative. And like, thank God that was my case, because that gave me like a little bit of peace of mind as well. Right. And she, I originally wanted to go to Sloan Kettering in New York, which is like a real name brand in breast cancer.
When I looked at like the top cancer like facilities, that was basically like number 2 in the whole country.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, I have like a couple of friends' mothers who went there and had amazing experiences. I know a girl that works there herself and has, loves it there. And so my insurance wasn't covered at Sloan, but I had talked to her, and she did her residency at Sloan and at NYU. And she had told me, she's like, if your cancer is a cancer that has been treated 1,000,001 times, you're going to get the same care you would at Sloan, at NYU, or at Mount Sinai. And honestly, you're going to get an appointment way faster. And I was like, okay, that made me feel like a little bit better, because I was like, do I change my insurance to try to get in here? Like, is this the place that I need to be? Is this like the best care that I'm ever going to receive in this journey? And she really like was like, I wouldn't change your health insurance. Like, go, like wait till you get your results and go from there. But if you have a cancer that's very rare, or you have a cancer that they're doing any type of trial over, she's like, Sloan will, they're all the doctors, they all talk to each other in this. And, if you have something they want, you'll get care there, and it's covered.
I think
So
that's really good advice, because if you're triple negative, or I think like when you're triple positive, that could be like a little I don't know what the word is, but I guess it's not as common as if you're like PR positive or HER2 positive. So yeah, that's actually a good thing that she like talked to you about.
Yes. So another thing too, which kind of is a positive in this breast kit, like in this journey, was I was able to get a full genetics test done. A genetic panel, because that rules out whether or not you carry the BRCA gene or not, BRCA1 or BRCA2.
Yeah, so let's kind of explain to the audience, if they don't know what that means, like what is being BRCA1 or BRCA2 in your gene is like what is that?
So that is you're just genetically predisposed to breast cancer, and like ovarian cancer or cervical cancer. And it's just, you could pass it down to your kids. And a lot of women that test positive for the BRCA gene, their insurance will cover preventative double mastectomy, preventative hysterectomy, even before you're diagnosed with anything, which a lot of women actually do. They choose to do.
So kind of let's like go back to the genetic testing. Who essentially gave you that idea to do one? Was it breast surgeon? Did you know that you had to do one yourself?
So when I went to see my breast surgeon for the first time, she wanted to run one immediately. So I did a blood test right at the hospital that day.
Yeah, and one of the things I would mention is when a breast surgeon wants to do a genetic testing, they want to make sure that you don't have any of these genes, but also they will be asking you questions whether you have like family history, but also if there's anything else that you may have that could detect that you could carry like breast cancer too. So I think there's a gene called like TP53. I don't know if you were tested with that, Shauna. It was just BRCA1 or 2, right?
No, I had a full genetics. So they tested me for like 77 different, I think it was 77 different cancers for the BRCAs. I was tested for basically everything.
Yeah. So, you just need to like talk to your doctor about that, because depending on if your insurance cover it, it could be expensive. But yeah, that's just something to note there. But yeah, it's really good that you did the test.
Yeah, definitely. And the breast surgeon's office, they like called my insurance company. Like they totally called and made sure it was covered before they ran it too, because those tests can cost you up to $5,000. It's really, really costly. Yeah. So that was one of the positives about I like about the genetics panel too, because I did have some family history. My mom's sister, my maternal aunt, was diagnosed in her mid 40s, and she ended up going into remission. And then a few years later, it had metastasized to her bones, and I think it was bones, liver, and then brain at the end. And she passed away at 52.
And this was how
many
years
2012. She had passed away.
Okay.
And then was probably diagnosed 5 years before then. So, yeah. So, so I had some family history, and I have a lot of family history of like lung cancer and prostate cancer in my family. So, it was definitely great to get that and kind of rule out any other. I wasn't predisposed genetically to any other cancers, which is like really kind of like it was really like nice to hear in a weird in a weird way. But also too, it was kind of like, okay, well, if this isn't genetic, then like, why did this happen to me? So
that's the next question that everyone wonders about.
Yeah. And I grew up on Long Island, and there's a lot of cancer. The numbers, the cancer rates on Long Island are very high. Basically, I think too, like I grew up legitimately right next to a farm. Like it was an old potato farm, and my mom always said like the old pesticides that were used like in the ground. We had well water growing up. Like it could be that, or it could just be. It could be anything at this point. I live in New York City. I live in a pre-war building. It's something that's in this building that's making this happen to me, or that was where it was kind of like really hard after getting my genetics. Like I did have an ATM mutation on my genetics test, but they don't have enough information on it. They don't know if that is the cause of it or not. And the more science learns about DNA, I can get a call in another 20 years and they'll have information for me. They'll keep a sample and let me know, which is like nice, but just kind of like, why is this happening?
Yeah. And I guess like kind of focusing on, your family or friends, like when you found out you had breast cancer, did you tell them right away? Did you wait a few days? Did you had other people tell another person like what was going on with you? Like, what
So I
happened there?
had my boyfriend who knew I was going in because he took me to the appointment. And I had two other friends. I had one of my friends is she's older, she's 50 now. Her mom and her sister both passed away from breast cancer, and she tested positive for a gene mutation, so she was actually able to get a preventative mastectomy at 30 years old. So she was a great source of information for me, like
nice,
just about everything. The biopsy, that's the friend that I had spoken to about the biopsy, and she gave me a lot of information just about, kind of everything. And
what a great resource.
And her sister was like on the clinical trial for tamoxifen like years and years and years ago in the 90s, which is kind of,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so she's very knowledgeable. So I had asked her a lot before, and kind of confided in her while I was going through this, but I did not tell my family. I didn't tell my siblings. I didn't tell my dad or my stepmom. I kind of was like, if this is something, I want like confirmation before I start telling anybody. I don't really want to scare anybody, and then I don't want anybody to scare me. So I kind of handled it like very privately in the beginning, and then I ended up telling my dad after I got the biopsy, just because when the radiologist came in and told me that it could be cancer, I kind of felt like, okay, I need to tell him now. But I didn't want to tell, especially my sister. My sister is 15 months younger than me, and we come from a family of like high anxiety, and I just didn't want to scare her, especially. So I did tell my dad, and my dad ended up telling my aunt, and then my aunt ended up telling my cousins. So people ended up knowing before my like sister and my brothers knew, which really upset me. And then my dad kind of like pushed me to tell my sister before I was ready to tell my sister, and that kind of upset me. So after that part, I was like, okay, I'm taking a little break from dealing, like having to tell anybody and having anybody give me an opinion on how I need to tell anybody else. So my dad goes put in time out for a few weeks.
I think that's really difficult time for anyone, just where you've got this information, this horrible information about like your diagnosis, and now you need to tell people, but you're already like exhausted, and you don't want to like inform everyone because you don't want them to freak out the same way as you do. Like if they freak out even more, that's like so unhelpful. But you can't really
Yeah. So
I guess changed like the way that they could react because, many people react like very differently.
exactly. So, I did tell my sister that was like the first sibling that I told. I told my sister and she cried. So then that really made me
Yeah.
cry. I called like my oldest, best friend that I've known since I was 5, who lives in California. And I told her, and she got very upset. And she was like also very pregnant
Okay.
at the time that this is
Yeah.
going on. So I think like, there's a lot of hormones and emotions
Yeah.
going on there. So she started to cry. And then I told another person, and then they really cried too. Oh, it was another friend who lives on the other side of the country as well. And she got very, very upset. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, like I expected these types of reactions. And I expected my emotions to come out after hearing how emotional they got. But then I also was like, okay, like I feel like I'm kind of comforting this other person now, and not like in a bad way, but it was kind of like this is a lot, and now I'm comforting like all these other people, my dad, my sister, my friends, and I wasn't upset or anything by it, but I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna shoot texts now, and that's how I told the majority of the rest of the people that needed to know.
That's probably like the best method. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so much easier. It was so much easier, because then like the initial shock of it, I think was, and I also like not made it funny, but like I was like, I have some news, and everyone's like, you're pregnant, you're engaged. I'm like, no, wrong and wrong, but no, so I kind of was like, yeah,
That's so funny because you're like,
yeah,
no, I have the worst news ever.
yeah. It's like, it's not good news. I said I have news, not
Yeah.
good news. So it kind of was like I did like shock a few people. I don't know. It was, but it was definitely easier. So then from there, anybody else that found out, I had 2 of like my oldest, closest friends did a GoFundMe, to kind of like help me out with medical stuff. And so that was plastered all over social media.
Yeah, I think that's very important to outline, like especially since, your insurance, if you have like a huge out of pocket maximum or your deductible is pretty high and there may be some services that your insurance won't cover, like it's really beneficial to do the GoFundMe. And I think like your friends doing that for
Definitely.
you is very special, and you can obviously tell that they really cared about you.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was so nice, and like I didn't imagine, like I mean, it's kind of nice too, like people that I never would have thought like would donated, like who, like would have, they ended up donating, and some people donated a lot, and it was like a really nice sense of like, wow, like people are kind of rooting for me, and they care and just want to help me out, and it was like a really nice feeling on that. But it was also kind of nice to not have to, like, again, like everyone just kind
Mhm.
of found out all at the same time, and I didn't have to be the one that did that, and I didn't have to put like a private
Mhm.
post announcing that I had this or had this stuff, like I don't know, it kind of actually was a lot easier for me that way.
Yeah, I think it could take a toll on you when you have to relay the information over and over again to like different people, and the C word is a very scary word for everyone.
Yeah, and then a lot of people don't know what to say, so then the stuff that flies out of their mouth is just like not offensive, but not like you don't I like they don't know what to say, and then they say something, and then I don't know what to say. Like it's like, "Oh, I know my aunt died of cancer." And it's like, "Okay, sorry about your aunt." I don't even like know what to say to that, like everyone just immediately is like has just nobody knows what to say. So the things that they do say aren't things that you want to hear or helpful or like, and they mean well. So then you're just kind of like, it's just, I don't know, it's very awkward. So I was kind of happy that the GoFundMe kind of came out and like told everyone so I didn't have to. And I'm not somebody that's like enjoys attention like solely on me. So it was like a little not uncomfortable. I just felt like a little out of sorts because I just not used to having like 1,000,001 people reach out and like, it's like a lot of money and like, it's just kind of, it was very humbling, but very not uncomfortable because that's not the word. I don't know. Just I was a little out of sorts.
I would say, like, in our previous episode, where we gave like our introduction, you mentioned how you always cared for other people, but not really yourself. Do you feel uncomfortable that like people were
I don't know if it
helping
was
you
uncomfortable,
now?
but it was just so like foreign to me. It was just like I just didn't kind of know how to deal with it. Like
Yeah. Okay.
I'm still like struggling with the fact that I'm not at work taking care of other people because that's how I've always done it. Like I'm solely taking care of myself right now, and it's just so different from what my normal life is like.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note here, like when you found out you had breast cancer, did you continue to work?
I had gone to a doctor's appointment. It was like 3 weeks before I found, I called my gynecologist to make a sonogram, mammogram appointment in December. I had gone and got some blood work done, and was getting my thyroid tested actually. I was feeling like a fullness in my neck, and I thought I was having like something going on with my thyroid. So I got blood taken, and I had like kind of mentioned like, oh, I have to, get like my thyroid tested or whatever, like kind of dropped it. So then when I had to make the appointment for the biopsy, I did say like I have to go get a biopsy done, but I think that they assumed I didn't specify where or anything, but I think they assumed that it was on my thyroid. Yeah. So when I came back into work, I couldn't lift for 2 days. They told me not to lift anything. And I watched at that time she was 19, 20 months. So she was 20 months. So I had to say I can't lift her into the crib. I had a biopsy done on my chest, and they didn't really ask questions, but they asked me if everything was okay, and I was like, yeah, just like getting something checked out, and I kind of like really
Right.
kind of played it cool. I was also very nervous because my current boss is pregnant. I'm a nanny, so I didn't also want to scare them, and I had just started with them, so that was like a little nerve wracking for me of like not knowing how they're going to react, and really loving this job and not wanting to lose this job, and I kind of kept it really quiet until I knew the full results, and then I knew what my plan of attack was because I wanted to be able to give them all the information, and then also give them like the amount of time I would need to take off for what was going on, and kind of the whole thing. So I waited a few weeks and then told them, um, like I was going to have surgery in March, and I told them, that I have breast cancer. And my boss was so sweet, and she cried. She just felt so awful, and they were so supportive, and they were like, you have a job, and you know we'll figure it out, and don't worry, like I don't want you to like worry about this, like focus on your health and focus on figuring out what's going on, and we'll figure it out. And I was like, thank you, thank you, God.
One less thing to worry about is, am I getting a paycheck every week? Am I still like keeping my job? Like that is
Yeah.
something that I would say a lot of people like worry about because you want to pay your rent, you want to like pay your bills. The one less thing that you want to worry about is not able to keep your job.
Yeah, and I really like love this family, and I wanted to stay on, and I just didn't want, I didn't want them to find somebody else, and then I didn't, like I just like really wanted to stay with them. Like, and that was like one of my biggest things. I really like almost obsessed over it in the beginning. I was kind of like, I don't want to lose my job. Like, how can I do this as efficiently as possible, still be able to work, that was also part of my struggle waiting for the biopsy, like the full biopsy results for the HER2 results,
Okay.
because I was like, HER2, it's a year of treatments, a full year of, infusions and things like that. So, I was like, really, I couldn't make a plan until I had that, and then was obsessing over wanting to keep my job and wanting to have all the information, and then have a plan and to present them a plan on how I can make this work. And, so that was really, that was tough.
Yeah.
And then, so once
But you were like relieved after when
yeah,
you
I
explained to
was,
them.
yes,
Yeah.
I was relieved. And then, I had spoken with them, like it was like beginning of February, and my boss was just getting more and more pregnant. And, they said, we want you to fully focus on your health. Like, you have a job, like you, like, you know, you are going to, we want you to fully take care of yourself. We don't want you to worry about having to come in here if you're not feeling good, or if you're not ready, or if you can't lift Lily's the baby. And, like they were just so great. So they were like, we're getting it, we're going to get a temp. I helped, kind of help them find somebody, and they have like a great caregiver now. This is not like her full-time gig. She does something else. So, she's kind of just staying with them and hanging on until I'm able to go back to work, which is so nice. And
Wow.
they FaceTime and text, and, I've seen them a bunch of times, now that I'm kind of on a sabbatical right now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they've kept in touch.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, I almost like, I can't wait to go back to work. I can't wait.
But after all of this is over, you'll be like more ready to go back to work
Yeah,
when you don't have consistent appointments
yeah,
every week.
cancer is
Yeah.
legitimately a full-time job at this moment.
Hmm.
Especially in the beginning too, it's like the amount of doctor's appointments you're going to. So you're getting second opinions, you're getting, blood drawn, you're getting breast exams. I've had half of New York City, I feel like, have seen my breasts, or now my lack of breasts. But, it's a lot. And then you have a recovery portion, and then you have, if you're doing treatment, you have treatment and then recovery from treatment. And it's like, it is a full-time job right now.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I could have tried to stick it out, but watching a 2-year-old, and then recovering from going through like all the symptoms and stuff from after chemo, I don't know if I could have done it. So it ended up working out for me, at least. But,
Yeah.
my friends did a GoFund for me, which was so nice. And, because there was a lot of things that weren't covered. My IVF, my fertility stuff was not covered. That was about $13,000 just to do 2 rounds of egg freezing. And I mean, it adds up, the amount of
Hmm.
co-pays and the amount of, hitting a deductible and surgeries, and then everything that, even the surgery, like the amount of stuff that you need for surgery, and it all adds up. So it's really nice to have that to kind of fall back on if I need it. And yeah, and it was really great because it told everyone and I didn't have to.
Yeah. And then let's kind of like go back to the pathology report if you remember. But like, they mentioned that it was PR positive, but did they tell you like the grade level, your staging at that time?
So at that time they had told me, there wasn't a grade. I didn't get my grade
Okay.
until the pathology from my double mastectomy came back.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
So they staged it as stage 2 based solely on the size of my tumor, which was, they had measured 5 centimeters on the sonogram and mammogram based on size.
Yeah.
Once I had my mastectomy, it turned out to be more like 6 centimeters. And at
Hmm.
that point, then it was stage 2, grade 3. Once I got the
Hmm.
pathology report back from that. So
You found out your grade level until after you had your surgery.
they did not give me my grade level
Yeah.
during my biopsy. That didn't come until after
Hmm.
I had my surgery, my double mastectomy.
Yeah, that's interesting because I knew my grade level before. I'm curious as to why you didn't have that. I'm sure like every clinic is different, but I guess they weren't like really sure, probably.
I was told I wouldn't get my grade until I had my surgery, actually. So I knew that before going into it. And based on the MRI I had after I met with the breast surgeon, it showed no lymph node involvement. So that was great. There was nothing there. And they did give me a stage. I was stage 2 once I met with the breast surgeon, but that was mostly based off of the size of my tumor, not, anything else.
At one point, like, during that early stage, when you found out you had breast cancer and then like, when you had to meet with your doctors, like, was there any like shock moment that you had?
It's funny. I think my shock value at that point was like at an all-time like low that like, I mean, literally at an all-time
Mhm.
low that like there's nothing anybody could have told me that would blow my mind, to be honest. Like I think like you have cancer is
Yeah.
about as big as it gets, I guess. So anything from there on, nothing
Mhm.
was like mind-blowing, to be honest. And I think too, I was in a very almost like a fog, like a major brain fog, like going into appointments and hearing things, and I would like not black out, but like I'd leave the room and be like, I have no idea what just happened. Like if I didn't bring my boyfriend with me and write notes, I would literally get in the car and be
Mhm.
like, I don't know what happened. What was said? Can you like recap that for me? I had a really hard time retaining information, even outside of doctor's
Mhm.
appointments. And by the time I met with the oncologist, I had talked to her
Mhm.
and I asked her, I said, is like brain fog like a part of this? Like, is this caused by cancer? And she said to me, she said, Shauna, she's like, your brain is in shock. She said, your brain is trying to wrap your head around the fact that you have cancer. She's like, your brain's in shock, and she goes, and that's why you're having a brain fog. Like, this is why
Yeah.
you're not retaining anything. And I was like, okay, like so this is not like a symptom of my cancer. This is a symptom of finding out about
Mhm.
my cancer. You know, so there was nothing that I think anybody could tell me
Yeah.
that was going to get a major major reaction out of me. Once I picked my breast surgeon, I my oncologist is legitimately on the same floor as my breast surgeon. She took my insurance. They found her for me. I went to meet her. She was great. And
You mean your medical oncologist?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I go to NYU Perlmutter. So it's a cancer center.
Mhm.
So my oncologist and my breast surgeon are legitimately on the same floor. I go to
Nice.
my chemo is in the same building.
Mhm.
Everything is all in one building and it's amazing. And
Seamless experience.
I'm not kidding. I love it there. My experience has been so amazing. So from there, my surgery date was set, and I mean that was kind of from you know mammogram, sonogram to that moment. Uh, it was about, I mean, 2 months. It was about a little under 2 months from beginning to not end, but the beginning of the end, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm.
So that's my story. And and if for anybody that's going through this right now that, is having a hard time, it is a lot of information. It is a lot of emotions. It's a lot of everything to process, and just be patient with yourself and just be you know, patient with the process. It's long. It's a lot of, it's a lot of appointments. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of trying to figure out what's going on. But, you know, you'll get to a point eventually that everything is set in stone and you'll know your plan of attack. And it's not like the devastation does wear down a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. And everyone's experience is different for sure. So, like everything that you read online may not happen to you. But just, I guess, be aware of, everything, like every type of like side effect or like surgeries and chemotherapy and whatever treatment plan that you have, just always ask your doctor questions. The Facebook group is like definitely helpful to just get an idea, but I would definitely say like refer to your doctor with any medical questions that you have.
Always. Definitely. Yes. Stay off WebMD.
Yes. Seriously.
Until you get all of your results, stay off WebMD.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Our next episode, I'll be speaking about my story, and then with the next few episodes, we'll be talking about, our just entire plan. What was it like to, go to our appointments, what type of questions we've asked, any lifestyle changes. We'll be talking about, our IVF process and our chemotherapy sessions that we've recorded like voice memos with, which is going to be, I think, really raw and an unfiltered moment for sure. But we are happy to know that you're listening in, and we hope that this helps, in some way to listen to like someone else's story and to guide yourself if you're currently in like the early process of your diagnosis.
How I process things are not how everyone else does. It's okay to be upset and be borderline hysterical at certain points. This is devastating. It's traumatizing. There's so much emotion that goes into it. And again, everyone has a coping mechanism and defense mechanism that gets them through. And this is just probably mine. Yeah. But I'm excited to hear your story next week. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you all for listening to our podcast. Sharing our stories with you has been incredibly healing for both of us, and we hope it helps other women in their journeys through breast cancer.
Ladies, if you enjoy this episode, please share it with your friends. Help us reach more women by subscribing and rating us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram at TYFTS Podcast. Our email is tyftspodcast@gmail.com. We will link any resources from the episode in our show notes.